So let's quickly open up the floor for a few minutes for just Q&A so that we can also hear from you.
Asanteni sana, ni George Mungao Okonji from Bunge la Wazalendo. Ombudsman, I'll be very brief. 2013, you are privileged to observe that general election, which was a challenge to you. You came up with a very good report entitled Championing Values in Hard Times. You made some recommendations. In fact, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 recommendations to various bodies on, among others, misuse of public funds. Magari za government zilikuwa zinapatikana huku na kule zikisunguka. Now, who is charged with making a follow-up to see to it that these recommendations you made were followed? Just because you did not make a follow-up, that's why we had a repeat of such misuse of public resources. Hiyo ni yako hapo. To any panelist, in the elections of 2007, 2008, we had IDPs. You're very brief, and I've asked, this is the third time I'm asking. These IDPs were resettled by the government using Wanjiko's funds as if they didn't have where they were displaced from. Meaning that mahala alitoka hiyo shamba, mtu mwingine alichukua. What measures did you people do to see to it that they are resettled in their previous land? Instead, Wanjiko's money was used to buy Mr. Okonji another piece of land. Na hiyo yake, mwingine yuko huko, anaendelea kuenjoy. Thank you.
Thank you. Zenge Crispas is my name. I am asking about 3 questions on my own behalf, but I'm a lecturer in Technical University of Mombasa. 1, advocates operate as corporate organizations, and also Safaricom operates on the same principle. There are cases when it has been heard that advocates have used clients' money, and unfortunately for those people who cannot be able to present their cases in court, they have never been dealt with adequately. You'll find somebody in the rural areas whose money has been used by the advocate, and he cannot be able to get access to it. What is this organization doing to make sure that the person in the rural areas and in places where he cannot be able to afford to challenge that issue in court can be protected from the misuse, from the mishandling by the advocates? Because when they operate as corporate organizations, they are saying that they can be able to handle some of the complaints that are given to them. That is 1. 2, M-Pesa is used by all of us. When you make a mistake of misplacing a digit or 2, and the money goes to a wrong person, then that money can only be refunded to you, only if it has not been withdrawn. Even if it is out of 39,000, if it is 1 shilling which has been withdrawn, Safaricom cannot return that money to you because you would say that the money has been withdrawn. The question is, the banks have been told that the banks keep the account for the client, and if the money is withdrawn by anybody from anywhere on any account, the bank is responsible for refunding back the money that has been withdrawn. Why is Telecom running away from the responsibility of handling these people who have withdrawn the money from the people who are sending money to a different person? And yet they have got all the records, because when you are recording, when you are registering your SIM card, you give the ID, you go ahead and give your full name, And even when you are withdrawing the money, you must present your ID. So in this particular case, when clients lose the money just because out of that 40,000, 1 shilling has been withdrawn, and that money is never refunded back to you, on what basis is Safaricom handling this? And what are you doing in trying to protect the Mwananchi down there to be able to get the access of proper services from telecoms? I know you will say that it started here in Kenya, but that is not adequate enough. The final one is this one. The government institutions are fond of handling things in a way which leaves things suspended in the air, especially when they realize that the person is not interested in sending the issue to court. But there are cases where you would find that a person has presented his case and is supposed to be paid by the parastatal, and he ends up staying 10, 20, 30 years before he's paid that money. And we're doing a disservice to the normal Kenyan. And if you are saying that you are a Kenyan Alliance of Residential Associations, then definitely you should be concerned about that general public down there. What are you doing to save them? On those particular 3 issues, I believe I need an answer.
My name is Joe Dundo. I'm from Lakisama within Nairobi. There's a question I would like to put across to the Ombudsman. Recently, there's something which has been, which was happening, and I would like, what's the direction we are supposed to follow? Is it advisable for a GSU or police officer, when carrying out operation, they hide either their serial number or registration vehicle number? Is it advisable? Because I think they are doing this way to seal their identity, so that in case you lodge any complaint, it will not be easy to identify them. Secondly, sometimes they use live bullets. And the live bullets, there's someone inch, they pick the live bullets, and the live bullets, especially the cartridge, they have their numbers. Don't you think this one can also help to identify these people, the police officer, especially like a case which happened in Madare, where the child lost her life? Thank you very much.
Thank you. I want to thank the speakers. Jill mentioned about the Constitution, justice, fairness, transparency. A year ago, my applications to the IEBC were gazetted as having been received either for chairman or as one of the commissioners. The law had been changed to allow a foreigner to apply. You can find them in the gazetted notice. I was one of 14 applicants for chairman and one of 700 and some odd for commissioners, 6 commissioners. Then the shortlisting decisions came out, and I was not shortlisted. Boo-hoo. Yeah, I have a law degree from New York Law School. I was a Marine Corps major. I've been here since '81. Many of you may have seen me talking about security issues, governance issues, economics, and the like, until your media blacklists me. Okay. Great Constitution promulgated 27 August 2010. Fairness, justice, transparency. Do I look like the common Mwananchi? Seriously. Hey, I'm white. I'm an American. Got a U.S. passport. Former Marine officer. Worked on the Constitution. Bomas as well. And nobody in civil society, the media, private sector, demanded a fair, transparent, and merit-based recruitment exercise be conducted by the IEBC selection panel. I didn't ask people, back me. Speak up for a fair, transparent, and merit-based recruitment exercise. So $600 million later, I hope everybody's really happy now, because I know the elections are over, right? Okay, we're here to talk about administrative justice. For real, Henry, don't tell me, this is grounded in the Constitution. 27 August 2010, paragraph 65(1) took away freehold titles from foreigners, from non-citizens. Fine, I lost the argument at the Committee of Experts that all land should be freehold. Okay, live with it. There is a transition paragraph talking about the issue of leasehold certificates to those foreigners who lost their freehold titles. Should have been done within 2 years. Okay, Henry asked, how many of you have heard about the CHA? 3 hands went up. Okay, obviously there's a need for some NGO to be funded for more education. No, Henry did not ask, what was the outcome? Did you use it? Yes. The outcome, I still have no leasehold certificate 7 years after the Constitution was promulgated. The Commission on Administrative Justice submitted complaints on my behalf after I submitted all my paperwork to the National Land Commission in accordance with the newspaper adverts in 2013. You had to submit your paperwork so you could have a leasehold certificate issued, and it had to be in by 31 July 2013. That was extended to the end of August. Okay, I went up there, got everything certified, logged in.
Sorry, Franklin, let me cut you
The fact
short.
is, the CAJ made a...
Do you have a question? Is that
The
particular
question is, has
Yes.
anyone ever received fair administrative justice? Because the CAJ, the Ombudsman, wrote to the NLC. Eventually, Swazuri writes back, apologizing. That was only after I met the deputy at one of these nice functions. That, yes, I did everything I was required to do, but unfortunately, not very many other foreigners complied with their directive. And they're going to consider to have another exercise. It wasn't, come on down, Mr. Franklin, and get your leasehold certificate, because you did everything you're supposed to do in accordance with the law. You followed the directive. You did it all. Great. And I'm here to tell you that it's not about education. It's not about having more television adverts. About, come to the CAJ. You have rights.
My name's Sam Francis, member of the Civil Rights. On our national anthem, there's a song we sing, "Justice be our shield and defender." And when we sing our national anthem, "Justice be our shield and defender," and then I ask myself a question: Are we contemplating justice as a country? And on any successful institution, justice is what defines a successful country. On the case of a young woman who lost the 5 children, I could say there was a problem somewhere, because these children could have not have died in the event of incubators. It's shocking. It's shocking because what we need to do as a country is just go back to the drawing board and see where have we gone wrong. And if there is the aspects of TKK, which has messed the country, we really need to get out of that and restructure the way we do things and let justice prevail. Let us not lie to ourselves that things are good. Justice is not working, and as a country, we really need to contemplate justice for this country to move forward. Thank you.
Swali langu naomba kuuliza ni hili. Sisi kama wamama katika nchi yetu huwa tunasikia kwamba tunafaa kuhusishwa, na ili swali linaenda kwa upande wa Cheboy Commissioner Administration Justice. Upande wa advocate, kesi zile ambazo tuseme kuna mtu amenyang'anywa shamba lake na ili shamba limeuzwa mara 2, limepelekwa kotini, kesi inaendelea, unapata ule ambaye amenunua shamba anaendelea kujenga na ukweli unaonekana kwamba hilo shamba si lake. Jambo kama hilo mtasaidia namna gani? Kwa maana shamba umenunua, uko na stakabati, kwa sababu hauna, yani niwe ni mnyonge, unanyanyazwa. Nyinyi kama administration advocate, ishu kama hiyo mtatusaidia kivipi? Kwa maana naongea kwa niaba hata wale wamama ambao wako mashinani, wengine kama mimi, tusipoongea haya maneno mbele yenu, watu wanaumia kule mashinani. Tunaomba usaidizi.
Good morning to you all. Yeah, my name is Tabu Charles, Chairman Bunge la Wazalendo, President of Bunge la Wazalendo, Kenya. My question is based on the land issue in Siaya district, and I think Mr. Jeboe, I've given you my letter of complaint, of which I think we need to align and see that matter solved on once and for all. Because this land is ancestral land, and what we are getting as a problem, as a question that I want to throw, is that most of our land registrars and provincial administrators have taken this thing as a personal business nowadays within the village. And land grabbing in the city have gone to the village. They have devolved. What is the role of Ombudsman in this line under administration justice? Secondly, if the green card specify very well that this is the land of the late Okumu Anyango, how was the land taken back to other people? Yet even the succession and the late Madam Selina, the wife of the late Okumu Anyango, she's still alive. And the chief knows that, assistant chief knows that. Such kind of conduct, you as an ombudsman, do you only go as far as taking back the land to the owner without dealing with the assistant chief, land registrar, and all the people who fought the document? Because this is a criminal offense.
Good morning. My name is Batha Ringel. I'm a communication analyst and freelance journalist. I come from Nairobi County and Tharaka Nithi County. I have a question on, I think to everyone, on education and especially the content of what children are learning in schools. It came to my attention recently that social studies in every county is dependent on the county. The Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development does not have a standard curriculum on social studies for every county, so every county submits to KICD. Now the question is, counties, as envisioned by the Constitution, were devolved units that allowed Kenyans to integrate with each other wherever they live. So if I am a Meru living in, for example, Nakuru County, I have every right to live there as a Kenyan. Yet we find what is being taught in social studies is that counties belong to particular ethnic groups. For example, in Kiambu County, and this I have evidence, it is taught that it is predominantly, it is true, it is predominantly a Kikuyu area. But what does that mean for future of integration? Especially now when we're having a major issue of ethnicity, where politics has been ethnicized to the point that if you are not pro this this grouping, then you do not belong here. That's my first question. Then, related to that, is a teaching of history. Again, in our school books, we find that history is being revised and being phased out. Sections of history are being phased out from our books. What is Kara doing to ensure that the history of our people from before the colonial times to now is preserved, and not just in museums? What is Kara doing to make sure that we internalize it? Because it is an issue of acceptance and the nation-building project. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Elfa Somkota. I'm a political scientist. My question will be brief enough. I heard Mr. Henry Maina saying that, of course it was satirical when he said that everything in Kenya is normal. We saw when the police attacked the Nairobi University students, and it was termed as normal. My question is, what are we doing so that this normal, the only normal, become normal in Kenya? Because everyone is complaining. Even the constitutional lawyers are complaining. They are saying that this normal is becoming, the abnormal is becoming normal. And nobody is talking about it. We talk about it, but no one takes action. What are we doing to ensure that maybe tomorrow I will not talk about this normal again? The other question is, when this question goes to the Ombudsman office. You said that there are many cases which you have investigated and no action have been taken. What promise will a poor Kenyan have from you that when he comes to you that there is something which he will get from you? You said about the case of Fazul Mohammed, which have been investigated but no action has been taken. What else can you do as a commission if the responsible organ fails to act? What else can you do to ensure that justice is done? Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Mutai, resident of Kilimani. Perhaps my question is more to what the Kara is doing. We accept in Nairobi that there has to be densification, recognizing the rural-urban migration. And we expect that parts of Nairobi, like Kilimani, will have multi-stories coming up all over the place. My question is, what rights do the residents who have been living in Kilimani have? And can those rights be respected when new structures come up? Residents are already suffering from shortage of water. They're already suffering from congested roads. They're already suffering from high levels of noise. But we see the counties are authorizing more structures to come up. They are rezoning. So in areas which were previously purely residential, they now are mixed use, commercial structures are coming up, and now nightclubs are being licensed next to schools. So if you are in a neighborhood which is essentially a school neighborhood, now the children cannot have the sleep they require in order to attend school the next day. You go to various institutions to have this noise stopped, but as it was observed, the wealthy and they have certain powers way beyond that. They live in neighborhoods of Runda, of maybe Karen, but when they come to certain neighborhoods, they put up tall structures, they put up in poor quality, because their children don't live there. They don't care that the children in those neighborhoods never have quality sleep. Then when they put up roads, Nairobi has a population of 4.5 million. When they put up roads, there is no pedestrian path. There are no cycling lanes. Where are the rights of people to choose their means of transport? Why are we saying everybody must struggle within a matatu, must struggle within their personal cars? So this is a question of what is Kara doing in order to create a livable Nairobi so that people can have travel choices. They can walk to their offices, walk to the supermarket. If you go to GPO, you can get those old cycling lanes where you could use a small chain to tie up your bicycle. What happened to this city of ours that we only care for the Wadoses that can afford to come to places like this one, but we don't care for the people at the grassroots? Thank you very much.
Of course, we are going to have our panelists respond to the questions. I know most of the specific questions goes to Bwana Cheboy, and Maina and Professor Jill could perhaps just make general comments from their perspective, and then I'll respond to your question. So can we maybe ask the order in which we had the presentation? So Professor Jill, do you want to make some general comments on that?
It's really, as you say, possible to make really general comments. I did want to make one specific one, though, without solving any problems. The comment about advocates using clients' money and what is being done about it. Well, we know, of course, that the Law Society has a mechanism for dealing with complaints about lawyers. And, of course, that mechanism has tended to move rather slowly. Sometimes I think the Law Society has improved and got better, and then at other times there are very large numbers of complaints, and actually holding on to clients' money is one of the major areas of complaint. I think this actually indicates one of the problems that we face. If you're a lawyer and you're disciplined by the Law Society, and you disapprove of the way you were treated by the Law Society, you'll probably go to court and bring an action for breach of your your right to fair administrative action. But what about the person whose complaint was never dealt with by the Law Society? We need mechanisms for, in a sense, for the people who've suffered injustice. And I think that's really the only message that I wanted to say from all the comments that people have made. There is no, to most of the issues that people have raised, there is no solution except to be as pig-headed and determined as Mr. Franklin here, who doesn't give up when these issues are raised. In other words, we must not accept incompetence and ineptitude and all those issues that the CAJ deals with. I'm afraid we have to keep plugging away at it. If you don't get the right answer, but you're convinced you're right, you have to go on and on and on. And the other message, of course, is you have to organize. I think Henry Ochieng will tell you that CARA is not a residents' association for Nairobi. It is an organization of residents' associations. But actually, what we need is to organize through the various, including through residents' association, but in other ways. Because if we don't insist on things improving, they will not improve.
Quite tough. Perhaps to George Okonji, it's not true that every IDP who was resettled owned the land before. It is not true. Some were hawkers, some were tenants around Nakuru town and Molo, and some were landowners. So the starting point is we must make our claims right. Otherwise, we fall into the problem of being sensational, and we are dismissed on the sensationalism of the message, losing out the import of your question. But yes, there are people who owned land, and they've not gone back to that land, and the state hasn't told us anything about that land. I am among the people who in 2008 suggested that the state must have compulsorily acquired the land that was owned by these people first before it began looking for alternative parcels of land. You would notice when the then Minister Esther Murugi was put to task, why was the state interested to be the one buying land as opposed to giving people the money? There had been a lot of discussion. There is still work to be done. We passed an IDP law, which was supposed to come up with a coordinating committee. The chair was appointed. The committee has never been formed since. And as Kenyans, we have moved on. So somebody must be willing to stay the course. And this person must be Okonji, so that Okonji does not just complain. Okonji says, I took this issue and also delivered it. But in answering Okonji, I also want to come back to, I think, the professor from University in Nthenge, Crispus and others. My overriding response to all this, we all have a duty. If we have not done our part, then nobody else is doing their part. That is where this problem in this country starts. Crispus wants to go to school to teach and go home. But he wants somebody else to follow up with Safaricom and sue them so that Safaricom changes its rules. Crispus must take the responsibility to be the first person to sue Safaricom so that it is fixed. He is a knowledgeable man. He is a man of means. Then others who are poorer can benefit from your litigation. You see that? Henry Maina has gone to court on over 10 cases. I have won on some. Other people now benefit because of that resilience. So that is the starting point. We need to organize ourselves better, but we also need to take responsibility and move processes forward. That a mere cry is not enough. 2, is Safaricom totally not doing the right thing? If you went to KCB, CCTV, and they noticed that the person who walked in to withdraw money on your account had your ATM and withdrew the money without what on face value would be seen as forgery. The first point they say, we saw you withdrawing money from your account. Please prove that you are not the one who withdrew. And when you do that, Kenya Commercial Bank does not just refund you money. It helps you to start a case. And when there is a high likelihood that the case would win, then they refund that money but ensure that somebody is jailed. You must be willing to be a witness that a crime happened. But 2, when you punch the wrong number, Safaricom has a liability, yes, but the first liability is on you who punched the wrong number. You know, that's why if you can't see properly, you are asked to use an aid. You see, there is this challenge in this country where when we do certain things ourselves, we don't take responsibility first. You've punched the wrong number. And when you punch the wrong number, Safaricom over time, and these complaints has been asked that you need to make a complaint in the first 15 minutes. So that if you registered that complaint and they've not acted, then CA, Communications Authority, must receive a complaint through the Multimedia Complaints Tribunal, and Safaricom can be surcharged. You see that? But if you didn't make the complaint that day, 2 days, and then the 3rd day you say, oh, where did I send my money? You are equally making it hard for a process of redress. So I don't take brief from Safaricom, but all I want us is that we are a country of rule of law, and we've made that rule of law by choice. Otherwise, we would have gone jungle way. Because we've taken rule of law, it is incumbent of us to be procedural. That's what Professor was saying. Just like we are asking public servants and others to be procedural, we must be procedural. We must be legal too. The Advocates Complaints Commission, I think, yes, it has its challenges, but increasingly now, if you looked at every half-year report, there are advocates who are being barred from practicing totally. There are some who are being suspended. There are some who are being asked to pay the money with interest. So increasingly, there is some action taking place, but let's formally lodge our complaints. Most of the others, I think, were complaints. Again, I think, Franklin, I've had a discussion with you on this issue. I was an applicant too, and I know that Katiba Institute went to court to try and get that process. We may not have done well, but you and me as applicants have a residual duty to sue and get it right. You see that? We can't be the ones crying to everyone. We have to take responsibility and move the process forward. I think, Veronica, you have 2 issues. The issue on nomination, you ought to have gone to the political parties dispute tribunal. That opportunity is not yet lost, but it would have served you well before people were sworn in. Now, after they've been sworn in, I think there is a high likelihood that if you went to the political parties dispute tribunal, they will ask you to go to High Court. This happened before. In 2013, remember, persons with disability lists were changed numerously. But some people went to court and won. and therefore that was rectified. So I think we just need to see how else can this be redressed. And once we've exhausted those remedies, then we need to think about it. I don't want to speak about the land issue because I think it's one of the biggest challenges in the country, and I'm least competent to speak about that. So the land issue from the chair of Bunge la Wazalendo and Veronica, not much. Batha, you have the right questions to the wrong audience. To be all fair, there are big questions for the country needs to interrogate about our education system, about our content, but my considered opinion would be, why can't we take this complaint to Dr. Juan, the director of Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development? Why can't we take this complaint to Matiang'i? If you can't have that forum, then Henry here and Henry too are willing to help get that complaint registered formally. Because one, in and of itself, for people of Kiambu or of Tharaka Nithi, of Kakamega, being taught in a language of the catchment area is not a problem. In fact, modernity has caused it to be a problem. I went to school in Kisumu those days, and I was taught in the Luo. I speak Luo, which helped me with integration. You cannot live in Kiambu and refuse to speak Kikuyu and still claim you are seeking to integrate, because then you are contradicting the same thing you want to say you are doing. So at a certain point, we don't need to condemn people in Kiambu for being taught that Kikuyu is the predominant language. But we must have content that includes all the others and acknowledges them to be part of that county. But this Nairobi kind of mechanism which says every child must be taught French and English as a way of our integration. We don't speak the English that British speak. We don't speak Kenyan English. So the children are more uprooted and do not integrate anywhere. And that's something we need to speak to well. History as an optional subject, the rain began beating us in 1997. Those who are slightly old in this house will know that. When history was moved from being a compulsory subject to an optional subject in high school. And now it is optional 2. It is not even just option 1. It is optional 2. So there are people who can go through the entire high school without learning history at all. That is a big challenge, because how do we integrate? How do we talk about cohesion if we know nothing about each other? So there are big questions, but could be well answered in a different forum. I think I need to leave as many to Henry One and to Cheboi. The challenges of the city, and can Kilimani afford to remain nice, compact, single dwelling units when there are 4 million people and the houses were built for less than 1 million in the city? We need to balance those realities, Mr. Mutai, because I grew up in Jericho in Eastlands, where we used to have a house and a communal watering point. Today there are meters in Eastlands and no house even to live on. So how do we reconcile this reality that there is urbanization and there are rights? Because sometimes people in Eastlands are not even questioned. You know, when the change began happening, Kilimani, I know the organizations are slightly stronger. But what is happening is the state, one of the guys I said, normalization that has happened. Once we began rezoning, nobody has a Nairobi master plan. You know, we didn't go back to a master plan replacing the old one. We just began doing things for convenience and for our cronies. And it is that disrespect to legality, to procedures, that has gotten us to this situation we are in. All is not lost. I think Kenya has the strongest civil society groupings I'm not talking about NGOs, I'm saying civil society groupings. We just need to push ourselves further. There is no leader who serves because they are good. All leaders serve for fear of losing power and for sanctions.
Thank you. The first question that came from George, he did mention the issue of the report we issued in 2013 out of the observation and monitoring of the election. You ask why or what do we do when no action is taken? I would like to just mention what Henry has just mentioned, the issue of people being proactive, because whenever we make these recommendations, we do it in a very explicit way. We are very specific that this individual committed this offense. We attach the evidence. We forward to the ODPP to do the needful. But then, if they are not taking any action, any citizen is free to initiate prosecution or even sue the ODPP to act, because the idea of checks and balances is that all of us are held accountable. For us, we do our bit, but then if the ODPP doesn't take the challenge, then any of us is free, whether organized as a group or an individual. We can always force these institutions to do the right thing. And just like I mentioned, the issue of the recent elections, we cited those agencies and individuals who violated the law. And out of it, I'm not sure, is it Kativa Institute or which one, went to court demanding to know how much the Presidential Delivery Unit spent on advertising to promote Jubilee issues. And I think there was a court order to that effect, that they must be given that information. They must release. So, but I'm not sure of the goings on. But the idea is, any of us is free to use these reports and seek to have action taken, because the challenge that the CAJ will have is then we release a report and we move to court to seek directions from the court again. So it would be more like we are our own, we initiate the judgments, or we cite individuals and try to prosecute them. So that would be problematic. But we will always challenge citizens and any organized group to take advantage of these reports and initiate action. We always know this gentleman, Okiya Omtata, is always in court. Public interest litigation. Anybody can take action based on this kind of reports, because it's only then that we are able to make full utilization of officers like ourselves, because in most cases we cannot make the entire circle, like we investigate and we recommend and then we initiate prosecution. So that is a challenge that at times our reports are not acted upon, but then citizens can also cause to have these actions taken. I think, was it Joe who mentioned the issue of police during operations? Some of these issues revolving around the police are better handled by IPOA, the Independent Policing Oversight Authority. But then on our part as CAJ, we deal with issues administrative, like your file has disappeared from a police station, those kind of issues, basically administrative. But then on these technical operational issues, I think IPOA is a competent authority to deal with those. I think Andrew mentioned the issue of Franklin. It's not private to what occurred. Occasionally, like I mentioned, there are cases where we receive complaints, but then upon assessment, we are not properly constituted to handle those cases, so we refer to the right institution to deal with them. Veronica mentioned the issue of land cases. We should also be aware that the judiciary has an ombudsman that handles cases within judiciary. But then other cases still do come to our side. So you can make use of the kind of complaints you have. You can either be assisted by the judiciary ombudsman or ourselves. But then what that means is that once we receive the complaint, then we'll need to bounce it back to judiciary. And the issue of bureaucracy delays then arise. So it would be then ideal if there are cases, complaints dealing with judiciary, maybe orders are not being released on time or such kind of issues, then the judiciary ombudsman would be better placed for speedy resolution of your complaint. And Charles here gave me a document which we look at. Your question was whether we go after these individuals who may have participated in causing this problem. Yes, we do, because in this kind of situation, this kind of complaints, we would write to the concerned people. I see there's a chief here, area chief. We have the county commissioner. So we basically try and inquire, and if it's something which is beyond an inquiry, then we do an investigation so that we get evidences. We try to interview all the parties involved, and out of it, our report then will make recommendations on specific individuals based on our findings. So we don't stop just like we rectify the problem, but then we also go after those people who cause these problems. That's why then if we find that a public officer committed an offense, we cannot for certain say this is the case. We then hand over the evidences we have to DCI, then to formally compile grounds for charging such individuals and forwards them to ODPP then for prosecution. Andrew, I think that's all been able to respond to, unless there's any other question.
Thank you very much for the responses. I can see it's already 11:30. I know we might still be having one or two questions to raise, but I'll request so that we don't take much time here, that we engage during our tea break session with the panelists. They can be able to respond to some of the questions directly. But quickly, to the question that was asked, I think the issue of uncontrolled development is a reality. The issue of non-motorized transport is a reality, and because those are the two issues you are raising. And these are things that we've been looking at as CARA to try and find out which is the best way to approach it. Last year, we managed to formulate and push for enactment two very important legislations. One of them is called the Community Enabled Associations Engagement Act of Nairobi County. And that was primarily because we realized that there are a number of issues, not just uncontrolled development, many issues surrounding resident associations, even environmental. And trying to address them on ad hoc basis, on a case-to-case basis, was becoming a challenge because there are a number of people who have issues, they have expectations, and it is not just possible to be carrying out individual cases every other day to try and find out what the solution is. So the import of this legislation is to provide a legal framework that will ensure that there's a structured engagement between the county government and the resident associations, so that it is not just a matter of somebody sitting somewhere at the county government making decisions and consulting when they want, and when they don't want, they don't consult. So this particular legislation, and I'll be able to, if you go to our website, you'll find it, but I can still get you a copy directly, really provides a very detailed framework of engagement. And one of the recommendations in that particular legislation is that the resident associations must be represented in the committees at the county government. And as we speak, there's a CARA representative sitting in the Planning Approval Committee of the Nairobi County Government. And the reason we are doing that is that we want to address some of these issues at that particular stage, so that we don't start raising issues when a building is already up, and now you can't demolish it, you have very limited recourse mechanism. So through this particular, and there's many other provisions which you'll be able to see when you have a hold of it. But in the long term, when we push for its implementation, which is what we're doing now, implementation, you'll be able to find that some of the issues that we are grappling with in this country and as resident associations will actually be addressed through implementation of this legislation. And of course, like Prof said, it's not just about Nairobi, it's across the country. So we are looking at how do we now replicate this kind of scenario in other counties. And of course, we're already having this discussion in the major counties of Kisumu and Mombasa, so that we have similar legislation to support the work of the resident association. Because one of the problems that we've been having is that there's been no recognition by the various people in government of the resident associations and the kind of contribution they're making to the various processes. So this law actually demands that they have to be recognized, they have to be consulted, they have to have representation in critical committees or critical organs that are making decisions so that they can put their voices at that particular point where it matters most, and you'll be able to see these kind of issues being addressed. The issue about transportation and lack of non-motorized transport, again, last year, CARA formulated and had a policy enacted on non-motorized transport policy to specifically address the issue of having provision for other road users. Because as it is now, most of the roads that we see are basically meant for vehicles. They're motorized roads. And you don't have space, cycling lanes, you don't have walking lanes. I mean, you can't just use it if you're not driving, so to speak. So this, again, this policy was enacted in July last year. We've had a sitting with the county government, and we're now talking about how best to implement it. So what I'm trying to say is that, yes, we have the resident associations that have the primary responsibility for their neighborhood in most cases, because you're the one who lives there, you understand what are the challenges, you're supposed to raise these kind of issues. So what we are doing as CARA is to provide that enabling legislative environment for you to even push further the kind of agenda that you have within your neighborhood, so that we look at cross-cutting issues and we look at a situation where, as a resident associations within a locality, you have the backing of the law, you have the backing of the policies to do certain things that will be of interest to your neighborhood. So that's how we are looking at it, and that's the kind of direction that we are taking. But we can have more discussion. I'll share with you all those information I'm telling you so that you can have a read and be able to see how best you can be able to ride on that. Otherwise, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to bring this session to a close. I know we still would want to have further discussion, but I wouldn't want to keep people here longer than we had promised to keep you, because I know we have other engagements. But before I close, I just want to reiterate that as CARA, we are also looking at, we also look at providing platforms for interaction and engagement with various people in the government, the private sector, and other sectors. So between 1st to 3rd of December, for 3 days, we'll be having the CARA Business Expo and Conference at Sarit Center. And the whole idea about this particular initiative is to provide a platform where some of these issues you're talking about can be discussed on a one-to-one basis. And we are hoping that we can be able to interest Commission on Administrative Justice to be one of the exhibitors there, so that people can come and ask you specific questions that are relating to them and able to give some kind of response. But already we have a number of confirmations from the government. The Ministry of Housing will be there, Huduma Center, NEMA, and all these kind of organizations will be there for them to be able to respond directly to some of the questions that you have and able to engage with them. So we want to invite you to save that particular date, 1st to 3rd of December at Sarit Center. Please come and join us, and let's have that opportunity to interact with the people who can be able to answer some of the questions. We'll be having a conference session that will discuss issues about urban development and making sure that it's sustainable, and we have a number of speakers lined up. Lastly, and most important, and also as a way of promoting the work of the resident associations, this time around we are going to have what are calling the annual Resident Associations Excellence Awards. We want to identify and reward the resident associations that have really done a lot of work in promoting the interest of their members, but also contributing to better service delivery. So we're going to have awards. We're already getting entries from across the country. Various resident associations are putting in their entries. We are going to have a panel of judges to review and make a decision on who the winners are in various categories, and then they'll be rewarded on 2nd of December. The whole idea about this is just to ensure that we are encouraging and supporting and catalyzing the work of the resident associations so that it can be more effective and they're able to address some of the issues that affect them. If you're a resident associations, you are free to make an entry, or even if you are not a member of a resident association and you think there's one that has done quite well in addressing issue of service delivery, you can actually make an entry on their behalf by providing the necessary details, and then that will be assessed and a decision made. So please plan to participate in any of those activities, and we'll definitely be ready to respond to some of the questions you may have and support the kind of work that you do. So ladies and gentlemen, allow me to bring this to a close, and once again, thank you very much for your support, for your presence here, and let's continue engaging and working together for the betterment of our society. We have some tea and snacks outside there, so please make sure you take a cup of tea before you leave. So asanteni sana, and be blessed.
Hey!